Trey, at least you know you can jump off a building, you can kill yourself basically if it gets bad.
So talk to me about your illness and your sickness. When did that happen?
So that happened when I was 15. That was 1990, February the 25th. I think that date's just ingrained in my memory. A couple of days prior to that, I had abdominal pains. I was then rushed to hospital, had appendicitis, had to have an emergency surgery, all went fine, all brilliant. Then about a day after recovering from that, around the 25th, it was a couple of days after Mandela came. That was my last memory. And I say that because it was the last memory I had of being normal. And I explain what I mean when I say normal, right? So a couple of days after the operation, I was given a drug called Stemetil. It's an antiemetic. It stops you vomiting. And I had what is called an ocular gyrate crisis, which is a rare allergic reaction to the drug Stemetil, which basically means your eyes roll back in your head and you're stiff. So, I mean, I'm on a hospital bed and I can see the wall behind me clearly and nothing else. That's how violent it is. And I say it's paralysis, but it's actually worse than that. It's a spasm, and a spasm's worse than paralysis. Paralysis is when your body goes limp. Spasm when you're locked in. And as a kid, I was always scared of enclosed space. I was claustrophobic, right? Severely claustrophobic. I couldn't get into a lift as a kid. And it doesn't get more claustrophobic than being locked in your own body. That is the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced in my life to the present day. So they gave me the antidote for that drug, a drug called benzotropine. I sound like a doctor because I had to become a doctor.
You were awake. You're fully,
I'm awake.
You know exactly what's going on.
I know exactly what's going on. I'm locked in my body. I can only move my eyeballs a little bit. And the first time this happened, the nurse and doctor seemed all right, so I didn't panic that much. I'm thinking if they seem chilled, I'm all right. So they gave me this antidote called benzotropine. About 30 minutes later, my body starts to unlock itself, and I'm thinking, thank God, I don't want to go through that again. Then about an hour later, I feel my body going into the same sort of rigor mortis type thing. And this time now, the doctors are panicking because they're thinking I'm a 15-year-old boy, right?
Yeah.
We've given him the antidote. What the hell's going on? And I am panicking now, but I'm trapped in my body. My mum and dad are panicking, like, what is going on? And obviously, with them not necessarily been born in the UK, had that happened to my child, I probably would ask certain questions, but they didn't have that, and I don't blame them for that. But I got locked into my body again, and I'm thinking, this is it. And I learned all of this years later that when that happened, my body went into a severe form of trauma, a severe form of PTSD. And what your body does when that happens, it tries to disassociate you from the trauma. So when I came out of the second paralysis, after they gave me massive doses of the antidote, my world had changed. And it's never been the same since. I had a ringing in my ears that wasn't there beforehand. The world looked like it was unreal, like I was dreaming. And I had this pressure sensation at the back of my head. And the medical staff were saying to my mum and dad, don't worry, it's just the effect of the drugs. After a few days, it'll go back to normal. And I'm terrified at this point, terrified that I'm going to go back into this rigor mortis spasm thing, but also terrified thinking, do I have to live with these conditions? I'm not going to cope with this. But I said, don't worry, he'll be fine. But I was never fine.
When you say you were never fine, you mean today you're still never fine?
Today, I still have 2 of those 3 things, right? So I've come out of the hospital, trying to get on with life, and all these symptoms are progressively getting worse. Slowly, but progressively worse every day. So it feels like I'm in a dream. I've got this faint ringing in my ears, and at that time I could only hear it when I was about trying to sleep. And I've got this pressure sensation. That was the worst one. So fast forward, obviously, age 15, I think 21, I went to university, had our massive hit, had Body Groove, was living a dream, was on top of the pops with all these other pop stars who I always admired. Life should have been great, right? Except my life was one day I'm living the best of life on top of the pops, and oh my God, all my childhood dreams have come true. And the next day I'm at another hospital having my 10th MRI scan or my 15th CT scan.
Because you had another attack, or just because?
No, because I wanted answers. I wasn't well. I had this head pressure, and it was so bad that I would get, the neurologist would say to me after I've had the brain scan, good news, really, really good news. There's nothing wrong with you. We've found nothing untoward in your skull, blah, blah, blah. And I'm crying my eyes out thinking, tell me I've got a brain tumor.
Yeah.
Because you want answers, right?
Yeah, you want to know, yeah.
So that was my life. It was just, I almost don't know how I got through it, but I've just got this level of resilience and tenacity that no matter how bad life gets, and I'll carry on. But the way I coped with it towards the end was, Trey, at least you can jump off a building, you can kill yourself basically if it gets bad. It's like the same sort of rationale people have when they go to Dignitas. They're not suicidal, they're pragmatic. So I had this pragmatic view of, if my health gets bad, I can always kill myself. But I love life.
Was that a genuine consideration?
Yeah, genuine, yeah. because it was getting bad. It took years. In fact, it took 18 years before it got to the point of like really, really bad. And life was, and it wasn't every day my life was hell. You know, I got on with life and got used to it, but there were just times when it became hell because every couple of months it would ramp up a notch. Mainly the head pressure was the hardest one to deal with. Like it would just ramp up a notch. And it was almost like imagine I tied a vice around your head, and every couple of months I turned the screw a bit more. So I'd wake up and it's turned, and I'm like getting to the point where you can't cope. You just it's horrific. It's like I don't know having multiple sclerosis or any of these kind of conditions where people go to Dignitas. You just get to the point you just get fed up. So it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Obviously, tinnitus, which I now know what it was, I didn't know what it was being made worse by loud music. But it
Yeah.
happened at 15, and I was a noise addict. And because it happened after the hospital, I didn't relate it to loud music. Yeah, it's foolish now, but at the time I didn't know. So obviously I'm in the studio all the time, body groove, and then the worst thing I could have done after that was become a DJ because now you're really in the environment. So I was waking up every day and my tinnitus is getting worse. So fast forward 18 years after that episode, by that time I would have been 33, I believe, and it would have been 2008. I hope my maths is right. I think it is roughly 2008. I'm 33. I go and DJ in this club, not far from here actually, a club called Sugar Hut in Fulham.
I remember that.
You remember Sugar
I
Hut?
do,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I've turned up there and the normal club speakers have gone. They've got these stack of speakers behind the DJ deck. By then I knew what tinnitus was. I didn't know what the dream sensation was. I didn't know what the head pressure was. But I knew tinnitus was. I remember thinking, this is probably not a good idea, Trey. But I had a sense of, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be alive anyway in a couple of years. Who cares if you screw your ears up? Because I'd become to the point it was so bad that I thought you're probably going to have to jump
You-
off a building at some point or you're just going to go mad. So either way, it doesn't matter. So I DJ'd there, but I noticed the bongo player had like earplugs in. And I think that saved me a little bit because I thought, let me go and stuff some tissues in my ears. So I've DJ'd there, I've hung around, the bloody manager's given me drinks and whatever. Stayed a bit longer than I probably should have in front of these speakers. I went home, the next day I woke up, I was deaf. And
Both
my
ears.
both ears. And my tinnitus, which was probably about a 9 out of 10 in terms of severity, was now 20 out of 10 in terms of severity, and I was deaf. I mean, that's torture.
Mhm.
So I've got extreme tinnitus, I'm deaf, and I've got head pressure that feels like I need to scratch my head open and get some release. And I'm like, Trey, you finally got to the point of you might have to jump off a building. But the thing is, I was quite religious and spiritual at the time. I had a real strong sense of belief in God. And I'm Catholic. You know what being Catholic,
Mhm.
like you can't top yourself if you're Catholic. It's like, then I've got my parents, and I thought I can't do that to them either. No parent wants to lose their child, which they did have to face a couple of years after that. Don't get me wrong. So I'm like, Trey, you're too powerful. You have faith and belief in God. You're going to have to really dig deep and trust that there's a reason for this. So I got back on the internet. Bear in mind, it's 2008. So we had no internet in 1990, but
Yeah.
whenever I could, I was trying to search and find answers. So I said, I'm not coming off the internet till I found answers. And I was trawling. And I remember someone's blog, I think it was called Star Child, some woman, and she was describing her life. And she goes, my life is hell, it's torture. I have depersonalization disorder. And it's the very first time someone described how I felt and had a name for it. Bear in mind, every bloody doctor that I'd seen, I mean, I've been around the world trying to get answers for this thing. So I Googled it and I said, wow, it's exactly what I've got. So I realized it's actually a PTSD from extreme stress. What your body does is dissociate you from trauma. It's like when someone's been attacked, they said it felt like it was happening to someone else and I was out of my body watching. Your body does that when you go through so much trauma that you can't handle it. Your body's almost saying, I'm going to take you away from the trauma. And when it's safe to put you back in, I'm going to put you back in. But my body never put me back in because the new trauma became the sensations. I figured all of this out because I had to become almost an expert in the mind because no doctor could tell me. So I figured it all out. I went and saw a professor in, can't remember what the place was. And he said, Trey, you are absolutely spot on. It's exactly what happened to you. And you do have this dissociation, depersonalization, derealization disorder. And because I knew that's what I had, I knew that the tinnitus was caused by stress, because tinnitus can be stress induced. And the head pressure was this extreme reaction to being locked in. There was a part of my body that was always tense. And in this case, it was my head. And because I knew that, I thought, okay, if it's an anxiety type disorder, I can treat it like you would any anxiety. And I didn't obviously want to do pills because I've been on every pill and medication you can imagine. None of that worked. So I thought, let me just deal with it by deep breathing, meditation, because I realized my amygdala, which is part of your fight or flight system in your limbic system, was so high, and it stayed high because I'm always waiting for when I'm going to get paralyzed again, that I had to dial it down. And I did that by really reaching within. I know I'm being a bit probably like hippie when I'm talking to you like this, but
Yeah.
this was the truth, right? So I did tons of meditation, tons of self work, tons of it. And like a miracle, within about 3 weeks, the head pressure disappeared. It was crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I was in floods of tears for this time because this was something I thought I had to live with, that I'd have to top myself over. And I found an answer. And one of the worst symptoms I reversed. And what was good about that, and that's why I talk about pain, is power. What was good about that, I learned that if I can do that, everyone can. And it's what really made me become a mentor. Because for me, it felt like the reason why I'd gone through all that suffering, because it's rare what I deal with. It's like so rare that it happens, probably 1 in a billion. I thought, I've been given this for a reason. I'm going to teach others how, no matter what they deal with in life, they can actually overcome it. And in fact, the bad things that you go through are the best things that could ever happen to you. So my pain was a blessing. And people always ask me to this day, Trey, how do you cope with your tinnitus? Because it is still quite bad. And I say to them, it's a gift. If I hear this ringing in my ears, I can hear my tinnitus now 10
Mhm.
times louder than your voice, especially in this quiet room.
Really?
100 times. Like, it's so loud. But whereas before I used to relate to it as a foe and go to A&E because I'd just go deaf, and it still happens to me, I'll just go deaf in one ear, as you do. I now listen to it and think, it's okay. And I actually talk to my amygdala, and that sounds weird. I call her Amy, and I talk to Amy and say, Amy, it's cool. Because that's what it is. Most of the time we've got a voice in the head, and it's the voice that's panicking, not you. We're capable of anything. But it's the voice that says, oh my God, we're not going to cope. Oh my God, you're deaf. Or, oh my God, they're going to laugh at you. Oh my God, it's the voice. But if you learn to speak to that voice or Amy in a way where, Amy, it's cool, I got it. Do you know what I mean? It's just part of your body. It's part of your limbic system. It's part of your flight or flight mechanism. I use that all the time to chill myself out, and I train other people to do the same. So I don't have the head pressure, but I still do have severe tinnitus. I still have severe derealization. I do have no idea what it's like to look at the world normal. The last time I had that, I was 15 years old in February 1990. I have no idea what silence sounds like. Again, I was 15, 1990, the last time I heard silence, but suffering only comes from what you make it mean. And I don't make it mean anything now. It's a bit like what we said about, your skin color, whatever it
Yeah.
is. It's the meaning you give it, not the reality. It's just the meaning, right? I choose to make my color mean something powerful, and so I am. I choose to make my health conditions mean something powerful, and so I am. So I've learned to be very powerful, and that's why as a mentor now, I'm able to transform thousands of lives, because I'm not interested in what you've gone through. I'm interested in what you're capable of. And everyone is capable of greatness despite your circumstances. I truly believe that. And almost everyone that we revere in society today has been through hell, whether it's Mandela, whether it's Gandhi. Most people that you see that are very powerful have been through some sort of trauma. Oprah, just look at people's stories. It's their stories, it's the pain that they've gone through that's made them powerful.